what is the most exciting thing that you're working on right now to make the most impact in your role?
Yeah, thanks very much. When the Climate Council was kicked off last September, stakeholder engagement was really a critical piece of it and designed right into it from the beginning. So in addition to the 39 members of the council, there are 6 working groups and a science and technical committee that adds another almost 250 people to the process who've been engaged over the last 8 months now. And in March, as we know, the coronavirus epidemic hit, and we had to take this entire stakeholder-driven process virtual, and it's been a real learning experience for my office and for the state to figure out how to do all of this engagement and all of this discussion and dialogue and coming to consensus in a virtual space. And so as we go into the summer, we're taking that process sort of out of the working groups and into the public, and we're really trying to think innovatively about how we use technology to reach people, include them in the process. And Maine, being a rural state, has a real challenge with internet access. We've got about 83,000 households in Maine that don't have access to reliable internet and broadband. So we're trying to figure out how we're going to access and engage and include those folks as well. So it's been a real learning process about how to take a stakeholder-driven engagement process and bring it online. And I think as we think about releasing this plan into the public in December, it will be entering a world that is defined and still grappling with the human and the infrastructure realities of COVID-19. And there's opportunities to really think hard about community resilience, what it means for communities to be prepared, not just for natural hazards and climate change, but also other types of disasters, whether they're economic or biomedical, or even the ones that aren't on our radar screens at the moment. A lot of the preparation work, a lot of the network building, a lot of the human capacity building can really help communities respond to many different types of disasters that are out there.
Great, thank you. Ann Miller, would you like to share a little bit about what exciting thing you're working on these days?
Yeah, well, after when the pandemic hit all of our communities, we were able to quickly mobilize as a state because we had the strong infrastructure in place, and we clearly knew our roles in, with the state emergency operation plan. The department I work in is the lead for community and economic recovery. So immediately we stood up a multi-agency coordinating group and got to work in mid-March. And a lot of good outcomes have come from that collaboration. So we've partnered with our Office of Economic Development and International Trade, and our Department of Local Affairs has regional managers as well as do other sister agencies. So we have been coordinating, having a coordinated front to support communities as they put together their recovery and resiliency teams and kind of reinvent what does this really mean. And if ever there was a time that communities are really being challenged to be adaptive and think differently, not only triage, the immediate impacts and the suffering that's going on, but be looking forward about what are the transformative changes that can actually improve our communities. So we have set up also a Rural Economic Adaptations and Futures Committee that brings together voices of rural communities and our Main Street communities across the state, along with some of the other thought leaders in some economic development associations and state agencies. And that group has really been in real time been able to share practices and innovations and kind of grapple with the issues. And then as an outcome of all of this effort, we have created a website we're calling the Community Adaptations Hub, where we're quickly sharing out emerging practices that are seeming to work. Can't quite call them best practices yet, but things that you're happening in your communities, I'm sure, of rethinking how the summer looks and outdoor seating and integrating land use planning changes and kind of all hands on deck approach. in the short term, and then looking at those longer term opportunities. We also just kicked off a webinar series that's called Adaptation and Futures webinar series with how to set up a local resiliency and recovery team. Next week it'll be on, so it's every 2 weeks, on adapting local government budgets and in the midst of these challenges. And finally, this Thursday, we're kicking off a peer exchange between local government recovery staff so that they can grapple and share kind of issues and solutions that they are creating in their communities.
It's great, thank you. All great examples, and sounds like there's a lot of interesting sort of both challenges and opportunities sort of happening in the current environment that we're in currently.